Now I want to compare a chart that shows what the PNP's plan looks like versus ours. In the first line, you will see the 3.5 million threshold compared with our 15% base rate and our seniors. The overall cost of theirs, 25 to 80 billion. Ours, theirs is 75 to 80 billion. And ours will be 28 to 44 billion when we roll in the seniors. And the 44 billion is us just being overly conservative. The phasing of theirs, there's none proposed. They would make the Jamaican voters think that it's going to be in year one. And in fact, I have seen on social media where people have already calculated how much they are going to get, and they've put it out there with the picture, yes, of what it is that they're going to buy with it. But it is impossible to be implemented in the first year. It would cause so much damage that we would be back to where we were 10, 15 years ago. So we looked at different options to finance this. Financing through growth is what the PNP is saying that they will do. So if you take a look at where our annual GDP is currently, it's about 3.2 trillion. 1% of that would be 32 billion. Estimated tax to GDP in terms of when you measure your revenue intake relative to your GDP, we stand at about 28%. So the estimated additional tax revenues from 1% GDP growth would be about 9 billion. To get to 75 to 80 billion would require GDP growth of 8.5% to 9%. Let that sink in. 8.5% to 9% in order to implement this in 1 year. Compare that to ours. At the top end, it would require 1.4% of additional GDP growth. And I have to say, let me pause here to say, when you look at our manifesto, the growth initiatives that are in there will get us beyond that 1.4%, if that's how we choose to do it. The second option, if you're not financing through growth, would be financing through increase in other taxes. The budgeted tax revenue for 2026-27 is about $1 trillion. Percentage increase in tax revenue required to finance the proposal would be 8%. For ours, it would be 1.3%. If it's through the third option, financing through expenditure cuts, and we are not proposing that, but we're just laying out the options and what it would look like. Wages and salaries would have to take a cut. Debt service would have to take a cut. Programs would have to take a cut. The percentage cut required in programs would be about 18 to 19%. In our column, it would be about 3%, but we're not advocating that, obviously. I know that the spokesman has been saying, or several of the various representatives in the PNP, they have been talking about reordering what they're calling discretionary, and the discretionary funds, and they trot out that is about $360 billion. I keep reminding them that in what they are calling discretionary are programs that continue year after year. And so I've listed some examples of what's in that $360 billion. It's the Spark program. Would they be cutting that? That's focused on giving us better roads, more durable roads. Would they cut the PATH program? Would they cut social pension? Would they do away with the short-term poverty intervention program? How about the need-based tuition assistance and scholarships? Poor relief assistance, assistance to infirmaries, Subvention to tertiary, that's 25.7 billion. Pharmaceuticals and medical supplies, almost 20 billion. For the judiciary, 12.6. Subvention to University Hospital of the West Indies, another 12.6. JUTC and Montego Bay Metro, they do get a healthy subvention, 11 billion. GOJ Health Insurance, 8.2, and so on. So you can see we have done our analysis. You have seen the experience of this Jamaica Labour Party government in government. You have seen that we have been fiscally responsible. We are the government that has delivered no new taxes for 9 consecutive years. We are the government that stayed within the fiscal guidelines. We are the government that took debt almost approaching 130% of GDP, and where we are now, 60% is within sight. 60% debt to GDP is within sight. We are the government that has delivered 33 quarters of growth, positive growth, interrupted only by the global pandemic and a significant hurricane last year and a weather event, Raphael. But what you will note as well, that we are the government that has put in place buffers, financial buffers, to help us through shocks. Prime example, last year with Hurricane Beryl, many of our schools were devastated. Infrastructure was just torn up. And within 8 weeks, we were able to find the resource to repair schools, and our schools opened as if we never had a Category 5 hurricane, because we took steps not only to create the policy on how we finance disaster, but to take the time and effort to actually get the financing behind us, so that whenever events of that nature happen, we know exactly what is available to us to help us to get back up and running. And you saw how quickly we were able to recover from these events. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be doing the increase in the threshold, and at the same time do the reduction in the base tax rate. As committed in our manifesto, a Jamaica Labour Party government in the third term will reduce the base income tax threshold from the existing 25% ultimately to 15%. But again, let me stress, we will be doing so in a fair, phased, and disciplined way, because we believe in fiscal responsibility, and you have seen us year after year after year. We've demonstrated that we are a responsible government.